Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelek Gimel and Mirz Hashem. Today we will be learning Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Beis, a little bit of a less complex and a little bit of an easier page than what we had yesterday. We are continuing to learn Halacha Shabbos. We pick up today on the very top line in the Shulchan Aruch of Lamed Zayin Amud Beis. We are in the midst of Siman Reish Samach Gimel. We're in the middle of Sif Yud in the words of the Ramah. On the top line where it says Ve'ikar Hadlaka, right by the Ois Cotton Mem Hey for the Mishnah Berurah. Our learning should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael, Hanesunim Batzara Ubashivya, Ha'imdim Bein Bayam Ubein Bayabasha, Hamakim Yerachem Aleihem, V'yaitziem Mitzara L'Rvacha Me'afela La'ira Mishibud L'Geula, Hashta Bagala Uvizman Kariv V'noimar Amen. So if we have been discussing the halachas here of Hadlakas Neris. We've been discussing the idea of the possibility of Kabbalah Shabbos through Kabbalah Neris. We've also learned earlier that the Iker Chiv of Hadlakas Neris is one Ner. There's a very old established minig to have a minimum of 2 Neros because of Zachar v'Shamar. Then we have other minhagim that you could be Moisif Neris. Now says the Ramah here on the top line, the Iker Hadlaka. Now, the way the Mishnah Berurah learns this means the Iker lighting, the lighting that the one who's lighting the Neris should make a bracha over. Let's imagine a scenario back in the day where the houses were very dark, so you needed Neris by the Suda, but you also needed Neris in all of the other rooms of the house, Mishum Shalom Bayis, so that you shouldn't be tripping and stumbling around. So, in those days, a woman was lighting many Neris. She might have lit 2 Neris by the Shabbos table, a Ner in a bedroom, another Ner in another bedroom. Where should she make the bracha? The Ramah says, V'ikar hadlaka tluya b'neroi shamadlikin al hashulchan. Says the Ramah, the Iker is the Neris that are by the table for the Suda Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Mem Hey. V'ikar hadlaka, says the Mishnah Berurah, Hainu diyavarech aleihen. This means the Neris that you should make the bracha over. V'loy al shar Neris, but don't make the bracha on the other Neris. Why? Explains the Chavetz Chaim. Lefi she'ikar ha-mitzvah lechatchila heina Neris she'ochlin la'oron. The Iker chiv, the Iker mitzvah of Neris shel Shabbos is the Neris that are going to be by the Suda, the Neris that are going to enhance Oinig and Simchas Shabbos. The roi shetehei bracha aleihen, and therefore it is roi that the bracha should be made on them. Now the Mishnah Berurah reminds us, but remember, va'afil al ner echad tzagi. But for this, you really only need 1 ner. So if you light 1 ner by the Suda, you can make the bracha on that 1 ner, and then go on lighting ners in other places. Miu, however, says the Mishnah Berurah, im yesh harbe noshim. Let's say you have many women lighting together. And they don't have their own individual table for their own Shabbos Suda. If you have one table and everybody's eating by that table, and maybe you don't have room, pashut, for all the Neris that are on that table. So in this case, one woman could make the bracha by the Neris but are on the table, and other people, other women, could make Neros that are necessary in other places in the house. Let's say you have a candelabra that is in the middle of the house. Again, remember, they didn't have electric light necessarily. So all of these different candelabras and licht were being used for the light of the house. So if you had Leichter by the table that was for the Suda, and then you also had Leichter on a tabletop or on a piece of furniture somewhere else in the room to light up the room, so one woman could light by the Neris of the Suda, another woman could light by the other Neris. Ukahai Gavna. The klala naktinon the bechol makom shemadlik kidei lase sham eze tashmish, because the bottom line is, as long as you're lighting licht in a place where we are going to use the light of those licht, ikam mishum shalom bayis, so then with those licht you're being mekayim the inyan of shalom bayis, the inyan of having light so you shouldn't be stumbling around, v'roy levarich, and then you can make a bracha on it. What this is a little bit reminiscent to, in my mind, is remember when we were learning Hilchas Brachas, and we learned that there's a precedence in brachas. when you have different foods in front of you, there are different foods that take precedence. So, for example, if you have shivas aminim, if you have an apple in front of you and then you have a grape in front of you, so you have to make the bari on the grape. The grape takes precedence over the apple because it's shivas aminim. We also found that there's a precedence to chaviv. If one food is more beloved to you, so then you're supposed to make the bracha on the food that's chaviv. Why? We explained over there because that's the kavod of the bracha. When you're making a bracha, you're thanking the Rabbanu Shalom for the food that you have in front of you. Make the bracha over the thing that has greater chashivus. That's a greater chashivus for the bracha. Over here, we're making a bracha on a mitzvah. So there's an ikr mitzvah. The ikr mitzvah is the neiros that are by the Suda. That's the ikr. So if you have a choice on making a bracha on the neiros that are by the Suda, or making a bracha on the neiros that are in a bedroom that are there for shalom bayis, so you shouldn't be stumbling around, the precedence goes to the neiros that are by the Suda, because that's the ikr. But that doesn't mean that you can't make a bracha on the neiros in the bedroom. The neiros in the bedroom are also roi for a bracha, because you are using those neiros for a tashmish, and you're using those neiros for the purpose of shalom bayis on Shabbos. So they're worthy to make the bracha over, but that's not the precedence. The precedence goes to the neiros that are by the table. But now you have a situation where there's a lot of women. Everybody can't light by the table. The pachut isn't room. So okay, so then somebody will make the bracha somewhere else. Says the Ramah Viter, so the ikr are the neiros that are by the shulchan, avaloi b'shara neiros shababayis, but not the other neiros that are spread out throughout the house. Says the Mishnah Berurah cut memvav haneiros shababayis hainu balabayis sheyochal lahadlik ala shulchan ulevarich alav. Of course, this halacha, where we're saying that the neiros that are by the table take precedence over the other neiros, that's by a balabayis. That's by somebody who lives in a house, and now the wife is going to tzind licht in the house, so she could light by the table, she could light in the other rooms, so the precedence goes to the table. Avol ba'oreach. But let's say we're talking about the scenario that we had yesterday in Sivov, and that was you had a guest who's away from home, and he's a guest at somebody else's house, and he has a cheder meyuchad. So we said, because he has a cheder meyuchad, he has his own private accommodations in the house, he has a chiyuv of adlakas neiros in that cheder because of shalom bayis. The balabayis isn't going to light in that cheder. The balabayis gave that cheder over to the guest. So the balabayis has removed himself from that room. The one who has the chiyuv adlaka in that room because of shalom bayis is the guest. Now remember, he doesn't have a chiyuv haguf of the mitzvah of adlakas neiros shel Shabbos because that's being covered by his wife back at home. But he does have a chiyuv hadlaka in that room. So now, in that case, are we going to say, oh, remember, when you're lighting licht and you're making a bracha, what takes precedence is to light by the table by the Suda? No, by this fellow, we're not going to say that, because he has a chiyuv of shalom bayis to light in his room. So he should light in his room and make a bracha in his room, not make a bracha by the table. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says here. Oiskat memvav, when we're telling you that the licht by the table take precedence, hainu balabayis, that's by the head of the household, sheyachad lahadlik al shulchan ulevarich alav, who has the right and the chiyuv to light by the table and make a bracha. Aval ba'oreach, but by a guest who has a chiyuv to light because he has a cheder hamiyuchad and he has a chiyuv because of shalom bayis, im yesh lo cheder miyuchad la'atzmai, even if he's not going to eat in that room, madlik sham ner umevarich alav, but he should light the licht in his cheder hamiyuchad, and he should make a bracha there, v'chanal b'sivav, because he has a chiyuv to light in that room because of shalom bayis. So that's where it's appropriate for him to light and to make the bracha. Now we go to the second line down here in the Ramah Lamed Zayin Amud Beis, a new halacha. Says the Ramah, V'tzarich lahaniach haneros b'makom shemadlikin. You should leave the neros where you light them. Okay? Lo lahadlik b'makom zeh. Don't light the licht in one place, ulahaniach b'makom acher, and then go move them to another place. Now, the Ramah doesn't explain this. We're going to flesh it out in the Mishnah Berurah. The Ramah is taking this from a Mordechai. What did the Ramah just say? The Ramah said, do not light the licht and then relocate them. Light the licht where they're supposed to be. Explains the Mishnah Berurah. Oiskat mem zayin. V'tzarich. v'tzarech. You have to light the licht where they're supposed to be. So first of all, the Mishnah Berurah cautions us. You might make a mistake. You learn a halacha in the Ramah, and you see that the Ramah is saying, don't light the licht and then relocate them. Now, right away, your mind might jump to Hilchas Muktzah, because we all know that once you light the ner shel Shabbos is Muktzah. You're not allowed to move it around. So your mind might jump right away, and your mind might say, oh, the Ramah is telling me a halacha in Hilchas Muktzah. What's the Ramah telling me? The Ramah is telling me, once you light the ner, so we just had before, that if you light a ner, you're mekabel Shabbos. So, woman, you're lighting the ner. We learned that by default, once you light the ner, you're mekabel Shabbos. So therefore, light the ner and leave it there. Don't light the ner and then go relocate it. Why? Because it's muktzah. You're not allowed to pick it up and move it. That's what you might have thought when you learned this Ramah. Tells us the Mishnah Berurah, no, don't make that mistake. He's cut mem zayin. Hainu afilu im yasne befeir she'enoi mekabel Shabbos ad sheyu aneris hamakayma. We learned that when a woman tzins licht, when she lights the licht, by default, she's mekabel Shabbos. But she could make a t'nai that she's not mekabel Shabbos. If she has a tzorich, if she has any kind of need, she can make a t'nai, and she could say, I'm lighting, but I'm not being mekabel Shabbos yet. So let's say a woman wants to go ahead for some strange reason. She wants to tzin licht in the kitchen. And then after she tzins licht in the kitchen, she wants to relocate them to the dining room so that they should be by the shulchan, they should be by the table, by the suda. So she might say, all right, I'll tzin licht, and I'll do it al tanai that I'm not being mekabel Shabbos until I pick up the licht and I put it by the Shabbos table. So now there's no muktzah issue. So now maybe you could do that. Says the Mishnah Berurah, no. This halacha has nothing to do with muktzah. This halacha applies even if you went ahead and you made such a t'nai. Still, there's a different issue. You should not relocate the Shabbos licht. Why not? So let's take a look over here in Ois Kot Mem Ches. Loi, don't go ahead and relocate the Shabbos licht. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Hainu, what this means is, she'aser lahadlik b'makom she'ein mishtamshin boy. The problem over here is, somebody, for some reason, wants to light the Shabbos licht in a place where they have no purpose. So I'll give you like a scenario. Why this would happen, I have no idea. Somebody has a garage. Nobody's using the garage on Shabbos. I'm not talking about a garage where there's extra pantry shelves. I'm talking about a garage where you park the car. What Jew parks a car in a garage? Everybody knows the garage is for the sukkah and the schach and everything else. But there's a yid, he has a garage. He has the car parked in the garage. He has his tools in the garage. The garage is not a Shabbos place. It's not being used on Shabbos. For some crazy reason, somebody is going ahead and he wants to tzin licht in the garage. And then after they tzin licht in the garage, they want to pick up the licht. Now, the licht have no purpose in the garage. There's no point for them in the garage. But we'll light them in the garage, and then we'll pick them up and we'll bring them into the dining room and we'll put them next to the table. Says the Mishnah Berurah, that's what the Ramah is telling you. You can't do that. Why can't you do that? Explains the Mishnah Berurah. Hainu she'aser lahadlik b'makom she'ein mishtamshin boy. You're not allowed to tzin the Shabbos licht in a place where you're not going to use them, and then ulahaniach haner b'makom she'mishtamshin boy, and then go ahead and relocate them to an appropriate place where they're going to be used on Shabbos, either by the dining room table for the Suda, or at least in a room that needs light, so that they have a purpose for Shalom Bayis. You can't do this. Why not? Why can't you do it? So for this, we have to hearken back to a very well-known halacha in Hilchas Chanukah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Mishum de Kaimalon hadlaka oise mitzvah. Because just like by Neres Chanukah, we paskin hadlaka oise mitzvah. The lighting of the Shabbos licht is the mitzvah. What is this halacha hadlaka oise mitzvah? So primarily it comes up by Hilchas Chanukah. The Gemara asks by Hilchas Chanukah, hadlaka oise mitzvah? Is it the lighting of the Neres Chanukah that is the mitzvah? Oy hanacha oise mitzvah? Or is it the placement of the Chanukah licht that makes the mitzvah? And this is a very easy to understand question. Let's remember, what's the purpose of Ner Shel Chanukah? The purpose of Ner Shel Chanukah is Persume Nisa, to publicize the Nes. Now, because the purpose of Ner Shel Chanukah is Persume Nisa, we have very specific halachas regarding the placement of the Chanukah licht. Back in the day, all the Chanukah licht were put outside, but in the doorway. Now, the reason they were placed outside is because the ikar is that the people outside should see the Chanukah licht, And by seeing the Chanukah licht, you're being Mekayim Persumei Nisa. You're going ahead and you're publicizing the nace of Chanukah. Nowadays, we can't light in certain places. You can't light outside because of the Einam Yehudim, etc., etc. So people light by the window. They light by the window for Persumei Nisa. So there are very specific requirements regarding the placement of the Neres Chanukah to accomplish Persumei Nisa. So now I'll ask you a question. Who cares where we light it? Who cares where we light it? I have a box of matches in the kitchen where there are no windows. So I'm not going to be Mekayim Persumei Nisa in the kitchen. And Pashtus inside the kitchen, okay, I'm not learning Hilchos Chanukah now, so there are other issues involved. But from 30,000 feet, inside the kitchen is an inappropriate place to light Chanukah licht. I'm not being Mekayim really the mitzvah of lighting Chanukah licht inside on the kitchen table by no window or anything. I'm not doing Persumei Nisa. That's not the appropriate placement for the Chanukah licht. But what I want to do is, I want to go ahead. That's where I have my box of matches. I want to light the menorah inside the kitchen. And then I want to take it. I want to bring it outside to the door. Maybe I don't want to light it by the door, because in order to light it by the door, I got to bring the match outside. The wind blows it, puts it out. It's easier for me to light it in the kitchen. So I'll light the menorah in the kitchen. And then I'll pick up the lit menorah and I'll put it down in an appropriate place outside. And now I'm being Mekayim Persumei Nisa. What's the problem? So the question is this: Hadlaka oisa mitzvah? Is the lighting of the Chanukah licht the mitzvah? And therefore, when you light the Chanukah licht, they have to be in a place that's appropriate for the Kiyum HaMitzvah. Because it's the lighting that's the mitzvah. The lighting is the act of the mitzvah. If the lighting is the act of the mitzvah, then the menorah has to be in an appropriate place where you could be Mekayim the mitzvah when you light it. Hanacha is a mitzvah. Or maybe it's only the placement that's the mitzvah. Who cares where you lit it? You lit it. I don't care if you lit it 3 hours ago, but you lit it. Now take it outside, make a bracha, and put it down outside where you're Mekayim Persumei Nisa. That's the Gemara's question in Masechta Shabbos. And we paskin hadlaka is a mitzvah. It's the lighting that's the mitzvah. Therefore, you must light your Chanukah menorah when it's in a place that's appropriate for the Kiyum HaMitzvah. So too in Halacha we say that the same way Hadlaka oisa mitzvah by Neres Chanukah, Hadlaka oisa mitzvah by Neres Shel Shabbos. Since Hadlaka oisa mitzvah by Neres Shel Shabbos, when you go to light the Neres Shabbos, that's the mitzvah. So then the Neres have to be located in a place where you could be Mekayim the mitzvah, where the purpose of the mitzvah could be fulfilled. To light the Neres Shel Shabbos in the garage when nobody's going into the garage at Shabbos, there's no purpose to Neres Shel Shabbos in the garage. It's not by the Shabbos Suda table. It's not at a place where you need to light for Shalom Bayis because nobody's going in there. So it's completely inappropriate to the mitzvah of Adlokin Neres Shel Shabbos. So you can't light them in there. If you would make a bracha and you would light them in the garage, it would be a bracha levatala. So now let's take a look at this inside. Again, says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Kot Mem Ches, Hainu. When the Ramah tells me this halacha, that you should not light the Neres and then relocate them, what's behind it? Nothing to do with muktzah. Explains the Mishnah Berurah. Hainu, she'asa lahadlik b'makom she'ein mishtamshin boy. You're not allowed to light the Neres Shel Shabbos in a place where you're not going to use them, so they have no purpose of Neres Shel Shabbos. Ulahaniach haner b'makom she'mishtamshin boy, and then go relocate the Neres to a place where they are going to be used. Why? Mishum dekaimelon hadlaka oisa mitzvah. Because we paskin that it's the lighting of the Neres Shel Shabbos that is the mitzvah, and therefore the lighting has to be done in a place that's appropriate for the mitzvah. So if you went ahead and you lit the licht in a place where they're not going to be used, in a place where there's no chiyuv for Neres Shel Shabbos, like in the garage, so then the lighting wasn't worth anything. Even if later you're going to relocate the licht to a place where there is a chiyuv, but when you did the hadlaka, there was no chiyuv, so then the hadlaka was worthless. If you did this, if you made the bracha and you lit the licht in the garage where there was no purpose, tzarich lechabois, you have to extinguish those neres, v'lachzor lahadlik, and you have to relight again. And even though the Mishnah Berurah doesn't spell it out, l'chari you would have to make a new bracha, and we could see really that in Sharetzion Katan Nun Dalid, where the Sharetzion explains where this halacha comes from. He points us to a Gemara in Shabbos Chav Beis Amud Beis. Desham Isa beGemara Deloy Asa Klum. When you lit those Shabbos licht, or when you lit Neres Shel Chanukah in a place where you can't be Mekayim the mitzvah, your lighting was nothing. Lo yasav v'lo klum. You didn't do anything. So the bracha that you made, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shekin shana b'zayis v'tzivanu lahavlik ner shel Shabbos. And you went there, you lit the ner shel Shabbos in the garage. Guess what? You made a bracha levatala. Because the candle that you just lit is not ner shel Shabbos. There's no chiyuv over there. There's no suda there. There's no shalom bayis there. There's no anything there. So you did nothing. So you have to put it out, and you have to go relight, and you're going to have to make a new bracha. Shaila is, if you realize your mistake right away, and toich kedei tzibbur, you go ahead and you put it out and you relight it in the dining room, maybe then you could get away with the original bracha. That's a shaila. Fine, go ask your LOR. But like this, pashtas, you have to extinguish the flame, and you have to make another bracha. Continues the Mishnah Berurah. Aval. But let's say you lit in a place that does need ner shel Shabbos. So you lit in a bedroom back in the day when it was pitch black and the bedroom needed ner shel Shabbos, mishum shalom bayis. So you went ahead, you made a bracha, you lit ner shel Shabbos in the bedroom. Then you decided, you know what? I see that there is room on the dining room table for more neiros, and the dining room table could use more light. Then, as long as you weren't mekabel Shabbos yet, as long as there's no muktzah issue, so I guess you lit al t'nai, then you could pick up the licht and you could move them somewhere else. The chalabayis have a mekaimam because you're moving it to another place that's roy for the mitzvah. Would you be allowed to light the neris shel Shabbos in a bedroom and then pick them up and put them in the garage? No, then you're being mavatal the mitzvah. But if you light it in the bedroom where it was roy for the bracha and it was roy for the mitzvah, and now you want to put it in the dining room where it's also roy for the mitzvah, that's fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with relocating the Shabbos licht. That's what the Mishnah Berurah is coming here to tell you. When the Ramah tells you you should not light the Shabbos licht and then relocate it, it has nothing to do with Hilchas Muktzah. That's not the problem. Even if you made a t'nai, so you weren't mekabel Shabbos yet, and therefore there is no halacha of muktzah here, there's no isser of muktzah, you still can't relocate it. But when can't you relocate it? You can't relocate it if when you originally lit it, you lit it in a place that wasn't roy for the mitzvah. You want to light it in a place that's not roy for the mitzvah and then relocate it to a place that is roy for the mitzvah. You can't do that because hadlaka is a mitzvah, and if you lit it in a place that was inappropriate for the mitzvah, your lighting and your bracha were worthless. But if you lit it in a place that is appropriate for the mitzvah, so then your bracha was good, your hadlaka was good. Now you want to relocate it to another place that's also appropriate for the mitzvah, that would be fine. But brings down the Mishnah Berurah, v'halavush machmer af bazeh. But the lavush was machmer that you should never relocate the neris. Even from one appropriate place to another appropriate place, you still should not relocate them. The reason for the lavush seems to be because the lavush holds that if you light the Shabbos licht and then you relocate them, it looks like you didn't really light them l'tzorich Shabbos. And we can understand that because if you light the neiros in one room and then you pick them up and you relocate them and you put them down in a place where it's going to remain for the rest of Shabbos, so then it looks like your original lighting wasn't really l'tzorich Shabbos. You lit it over there. Maybe you were looking for your shoes. So you lit neiros inside a bedroom so you could find your shoes. Then you picked up the neiros and you put them where you want them for Shabbos. So it looks like the hadlaka wasn't l'kvod Shabbos, and therefore the lavush says you should be machmer and not do this. Says the Mishnah Berurah, uvamakam at tzorich, but when you have a tzorich to relocate them, yesh lahakal, you could be mekel. Kasav v'chayodim, the chayodim writes, hanashim shemadlikin b'sukkah b'chag. We know people want to light neiros shel Yom Tov in the sukkah. You're doing another mitzvah, do the mitzvah in the sukkah. The Suda is in the sukkah, so people want to light in the sukkah. But sometimes what happens is they light in the sukkah, then they're worried, they're leaving the lighter outside. Maybe they're worried about the wind, maybe they're worried about fire, I don't know. So they want to light in the sukkah, and then they want to relocate it, and they want to move the neiros into the house. Says the Chayyadim, not good. Kasav v'chayyadim anashim shemadlikin b'sukkah b'chag b'mtatel l'sachabayis lo yafe hein oisen. Okay, now we go to Sif Yod Aleph, 3 lines down here on Lamed Zayin Amud Beis, but we already did the vast majority of the Mishnah Berurah on the page. All right, now we're kind of shifting tracks over here, and now we're going back to discussing Kabbalah Shabbos. So we have already mentioned the idea that when you daven Ma'ariv, when you go to shul, in the mechaber's world, when they said Baruch Hu, that constituted Kabbalah Shabbos. Why? Because it's the beginning of Ma'ariv Shel Shabbos. The mechaber said, by us, we say Mizmar Shir. Mizmar Shir becomes Kabbalah Shabbos, because that's when we're mentioning Shabbos. The Mishnah Berurah said, we say L'chadoidi, so Boi V'Shalom is Kabbalah Shabbos, because we're mentioning Shabbos and Boi V'Shalom, we're literally greeting the Shabbos Malka, that constitutes Kabbalah Shabbos. So we've had already this concept and this idea of linking Kabbalah Shabbos to davening. Okay, now says the Mechaber Sif Yud Aleph. Afal pi shelo yispalalu hakohol adayin. Even if the tzibbur has not yet davened Ma'ariv. So there's a shul in town, and the shul has not yet davened Ma'ariv. So the tzibbur hasn't davened Ma'ariv yet. Says the Mechaber, Im kodam hayochid v'hispal shel Shabbos mi ba'od yom. If a yid at home, a yochid, gets up, he decides he wants to make early Shabbos, and after Plag HaMincha, he goes ahead and he davens Ma'ariv. Okay, says the Mechaber, Chalalav Kabbalah Shabbos, he was just mekabel Shabbos. By virtue of the fact that he davened Ma'ariv, he was mekabel Shabbos. V'aser b'asiyas malacha, and he becomes aser on asiyas malacha. V'afilu im omer she'ena roitza l'kabel Shabbos. Even if he wants to be a smart aleck, and he wants to say, no, I'm not being mekabel Shabbos, I'm davening Ma'ariv, but I'm not being mekabel Shabbos. Too bad. So, in a way, what the Mechaber is telling you is, this is not like lighting Shabbos licht. Shabbos licht, we said that the Bahag holds that lighting Shabbos licht equals Kabbalah Shabbos. In the Bahag, we had a shita that says that even though lighting licht equals Kabbalah Shabbos, but you could make it Tanai. You could say, I'm lighting, but I'm not being mekabel Shabbos yet. The Mishnah Berurah said, you're only allowed to make that Tanai l'tzoyrich. Now, says the Mechaber, but if you daven Ma'ariv, even if you're a Yachid, not the Tzibbur is making late Shabbos. You decided you want to make early Shabbos. So you make early Shabbos, you daven Ma'ariv after Plag. Before Plag, it's worthless. Your Ma'ariv is worthless, your Kabbalah Shabbos is worthless, but you daven Ma'ariv after Plag. You daven Ma'ariv after Plag, it's Shabbos, you were mekabel Shabbos, and you're Aser in Malacha, and a Tanai is not going to help. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Cotton Memtes. Mi ba'od yom. The Mechaber says you daven Ma'ariv while it was still day. Clarifies the Mishnah Berurah, and he says, Hainu we plag mincha l'mayla. Obviously, this means after Plag. Ukedelael b'simin reish samachal sif beis b'haga, because to try to be mekabel Shabbos before Plag is worthless. Ma'ariv before Plag is worthless. It's day, according to everybody. There's no shita that says that after Plag is night. Rabbi Yehuda says that after Plag is already night. But there's no shita that says that before Plag is night. So before Plag, your Ma'ariv is worthless, your Kabbalah Shabbos is worthless. And you can't even make it tonight. You daven Ma'ariv, that's it, it's over. You're mekabel Shabbos. Even though when it comes to lighting Shabbos Neirus, we said there are those that hold that you could light Shabbos Neirus with a Tanai, and if you made a Tanai, you're not mekabel Shabbos. But tefillah, but by davening, shani, that's different. Kevin shehiskir bo kedusha Shabbos. You daven Ma'ariv. You said Baruch Atah Hashem mekadish Shabbos. You can't say in Shemoneh Esrei Baruch Atah Hashem mekadish Shabbos and then say no, I wasn't mekabel Shabbos yet. If you said mekadish Shabbos, that's it. It's all over. It's Shabbos. Okay, let's go further on this theme. Sif Yud Beis. Now the Mechaber is going to introduce a new concept, and that is the concept that an individual or even a group of people that have a din of an individual are nigrar, they're noch geschleppt, they're pulled by the tzibbur. Whatever the tzibbur does, these yechidim are forced to follow the tzibbur, whether they want to or not. Says the Mechaber Sif Yud Beis. Im roiv hakohol kiblu aleihim Shabbos. Let's make this easy. Somebody lives in a shtetl. Somebody lives in a very, very small community. There's one shul in the community. There's one tzibbur. Everybody davens together. Says the Mechaber, Im roiv hakol kiblu aleihim Shabbos. If roiv of the tzibbur was mekabel Shabbos, so there's one little shul in town, it's one tzibbur, and they make early Shabbos. So roiv of the tzibbur made early Shabbos. Ha-miut nimshachem achareim al karcham. The miut, the yechidim, they are stuck. They can't say, oh, I don't want to make early Shabbos. I want to make Shabbos bisman. Too bad. Roiv HaTzibur already made Shabbos after Plag, it doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter what you tried to do. You automatically have to be mekabel Shabbos. You automatically are mekabel Shabbos. It's Shabbos for you. Once the tzibur made Shabbos, I don't care if you said Mizmor Shir, I don't care if you said Boi V'Shalom, doesn't matter. It's like what happens when Ben Hashmashus comes. If Roiv of the tzibur was mekabel Shabbos, you are stuck. It is Shabbos for you. Says the Mishnah Berurah weiter. Says the mekabel no. That's it for the mekabel. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut nun aleph. Im Roiv HaKol. Now, the Mishnah Berurah qualifies this a little bit. V'im Roiv HaKol lo hayu bebeis hakneses. Let's say the scenario I just gave you. There's a small town. There's one shul. All right, there's only one shul, but guess what? Nobody showed up. You're not the only one who decided he wants to make late Shabbos this week. The only shul in town makes early Shabbos. But you know what? Roiv HaTzibur didn't show up. 15 people showed up in shul, and they made Shabbos early, but the other 30 people who live in town stayed home. So now, the shul, the official shul, the Beis HaKnesses, was mekabel Shabbos, but Roiv HaTzibur wasn't. In that case, says the Mishnah Berurah, V'em Roiv HaKol lo hayu bebeis hakneses ein nimshachin achar hamiut. The other people who didn't come, they don't get schlepped after the miut that showed up in shul. V'chein be'ir sheyesh bo bati knisiyas harbe. Now this is what's mostly negea to us. You live in Lakewood, you live in Flatbush, you live in Borough Park, you live in Williamsburg, you live in Muncie. There's shuls on every block. So there's shuls all over the place. Says the Mishnah Berurah, V'chein be'ir sheyesh bo bati knisiyas harbe. When you live in a town where there's a lot of shuls, ein achas nimsheches achar chaverta. Then there's no such thing as Roiv HaTzibur. We don't go ahead and do a census and say there's 20,000 Yidden that live in Shtad. If 11,000 people already were mekabel Shabbos in all of their individual shuls, and now the other shuls make late Shabbos, but Roiv HaTzibur was already mekabel Shabbos, the other people are stuck. No. Each shul is considered a choshev tzibur. Since each shul is considered a choshev tzibur, one choshev tzibur is not noch geschlept after the other choshev tzibur. Each one is a choshev tzibur in its own right. So, okay, I have a choshev tzibur, I have a shul, a Beis HaKnesses. As a choshev tzibur, you have the right to make Shabbos when you want. So you want to make late Shabbos, make late Shabbos. So v'chein be'ir sheyesh bo bati knisiyas harbe ein achas nimsheches achar chaverta. One shul doesn't get pulled after another shul. Each shul is a choshev tzibur in its own right. Va'afilu im ba'achas roiv. And this is true. Let's say, this is the Gea where I live. Let's say there are two shuls in town. One is the big shul. 200 people daven in the big shul. The other shul is a small shul. 20 people daven in the other shul. So it's 10%. It's way a miut. And the big shul made early Shabbos. And now the small shul wants to make late Shabbos. Doesn't matter. Even though the big shul far outstrips the small shul, but the small shul is a shul. So it's a choshev tzibur, and they can make their minyan even late. Va'afilu im ba'achas roiv. Now comes a kicker. And this could come up, and if it comes up and you have a shaila, ask your Rav. Aval, im oisa minyan bebeisoi. Let's say somebody makes a Friday night minyan in his house. Afilu minyan kavua. Even if it's a minyan kavua, somebody's been making a Friday night minyan in his house for the last 10 years. So it's a minyan kavua, but it's not a Beis HaKnesses. It's not a Beis HaKnesses. It's not a shul. It's a house minyan. It's a private house minyan in a guy's living room. The same 15 people get together every Friday night. They've been doing it for 10 years, but it's a house minyan. Says the Mishnah Berurah, that's not a choshev tzibur. So if the main shul, if the Roiv HaKol, they make Shabbos early, and you want to make a house minyan and make Shabbos late, says the Mishnah Berurah, that doesn't work. You have to go after the shul. Says the Mishnah Berurah again. He says, if you make a small house minyan, afilu minyan kavua, even if it's a minyan kavua that you've been doing for 10 years, batal eitzel roiv. You're batal to the roiv, and if they made early Shabbos, you're stuck. Your Kabbalah Shabbos comes together with them. He brings this down from the Derech HaChaim. Okay, now let's go to Sif Yud Gimel. Says the Mechaber. Very interesting halacha. Adam shebal ir be'erev Shabbos. A guest comes to town on Erev Shabbos. Ukvar kiblu anshi ir aleim Shabbos. A guest comes to town, and he finds out that in this city they made early Shabbos. So there's one tzibbur in the city, or there's one shul, Roiv HaTzibbur, in one shul, they already made early Shabbos, and now I just drove up, and I'm here for Shabbos, and I find out that they're on mekabel Shabbos already. Guess what? Now it's Shabbos for you. Says the mechaber, Afal Pisha Adayin Hayom Gadol, even though it's still early in the day, but it's after plag. Im Hayu Alav Mois, if you carry money, which is muktzah, or Shum Chayfetz, or anything else that's muktzah, Manichai Lipoil, you gotta let it go. Because guess what? You showed up in town, they will mekabel Shabbos after plag, you're a yachid, you're schlepped after the tzibbur, it's Shabbos for you. You have muktzah, you gotta let it go. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Ois cotton nun base. What does this mean, manicha lipoil, that you have to drop the muktzah that you're holding? Explains the Mishnah Berurah. Pirush, this means shaholich lecheder, you could go to a room, you don't have to immediately drop it. Shaholich lecheder, you could go to a room, umanicha lipoil sham, and then use tiltel ben atzad. You have your wallet in your pocket, shake out your pocket in order to make it fall on the floor, latznioi, to put it in a nice safe place. Ukamoisha kosev, Siman Reis Samach Vav, Sif Yud Beis, Vayin Sham, B'Mishnah Berurah, Ubir Halacha. Sif Yud Dalet. Another interesting topic here. Says the mechaber. Remember, we're going back in the day when people didn't have clocks and watches and everything else. They looked out the window to determine how late is it on Erev Shabbos, is it Shabbos yet. Says the mechaber, in biyoim unon, if it was a cloudy day, very dark, threatening clouds, it got dark outside. In biyoim unon, to'u tzibbur, the tzibbur goofed. The choshvu shechashecha, they thought it was night. V'hidliku neiros, so they actually went ahead and they lit Shabbos licht. V'hispalalu tfilas arva shel Shabbos, and they got together in shul and they davened ma'ariv. So they looked outside, it got dark outside, they said, oi, it's time for Shabbos. They went, they tzin Shabbos licht, they went to shul, they davened ma'ariv shel Shabbos. Now this is a tzibbur, the tzibbur did this. V'akakach nispazra ha'avim, now everybody's walking out of shul, get Shabbos, get Shabbos, get Shabbos. They come outside and the sun is shining. V'zar chachama, says the mechaber, first we're going to tackle what the status of their ma'ariv is. They davened the ma'ariv too early, and they did it b'toyos. Says the mechaber, einam tzrichem laxar u'lispal arvis, they don't have to daven ma'ariv again, im kishehispalalu hayom miplaga minchu l'mayla. If a tzibbur did this, the tzibbur, they didn't intend on davening ma'ariv after plag. They intended to daven ma'ariv later, after shkia. They wanted to daven ma'ariv bizman. They wanted to daven ma'ariv at seis. Got dark outside, so they thought it's late. So they went, they tzin Shabbos licht, they went, they davened ma'ariv. Now it was after plag. After plag is already a zman that's a roi for ma'ariv. So they goofed, they davened ma'ariv too early. Says the mechaber, they don't have to daven over again. They don't have to daven another ma'ariv. As long as it's after plag, they don't have to daven another ma'ariv. But if this happened to an individual, if it happened to an individual that he davened ma'ariv too early by mistake, he davened after plag, wanting to daven later, he has to go ahead and he has to daven ma'ariv again. Now, we're not yet talking about Kabbalah Shabbos, because that's right away. How about Kabbalah Shabbos? What happens with that? Are you author in Malacha or not? I'm not sure we're going to have time to do that yet today. We might have to tackle that tomorrow. Right now, the mechaber is only talking about ma'ariv. Do you have to daven ma'ariv over again or not? And what the mechaber said was, it depends. If it's a tzibbur, since they daven ma'ariv after plag, we're not going to make them daven ma'ariv over again. If it's a yachid, even though he davened after plag, he has to daven ma'ariv again. Let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah and see what's at play. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Eis Katan and Gimel. If it's a tzibbur, Einam tzrichim, they don't have to daven over again. The loy matrichim tzibura, we're not matriach a tzibur, av shebetosaisa. Even though they goofed and they had no intention of davening ma'ariv after plag, so really there's a reason why we should make them daven over again. We're not going to make them over again because we're not going to make them do it again because we're not matriach a tzibur. Eis katan nun daled, but this is only miplag mincha l'mayla. This is only if they daven ma'ariv after plag. The koydem plag mincha afilu tzibur nami maksivinon. If it was before plag, even a tzibur would have to daven over again because it's worthless. The lavzman tfilas arvisi klal. There's no such thing as ma'ariv before plag. So yeah, if you daven ma'ariv before plag, if you daven a Shabbos davening on Tuesday, it's worthless. If you daven ma'ariv before plag, it's worthless. So yeah, even if they made a mistake, they davened before plag, they got to do it over again. Uzman plag. El b'siman reish lamed gimel. We've already explained many times when plag is. Ois kat nun hey. But if this is a yachid, tzarichu. If this happens to a yachid, he has to daven over again. Now, there's something here that needs explanation right away. What did this yachid do? He looked outside. It was cloudy. He thought it was later than it really is. When did he want to daven Ma'ariv? He wanted to daven Ma'ariv at the proper time. So he wanted to daven Ma'ariv Bisman. He wanted to daven Ma'ariv by Tzeis. That's what he wanted to daven Ma'ariv. By mistake, he davened Ma'ariv too early. How early? After plag. We're saying, since by mistake he davened Ma'ariv too early, earlier than he wanted to, he has to daven Ma'ariv over again, even though he davened Ma'ariv after plag. Now, Ma'ariv after plag, there's a mokum for Ma'ariv after plag. So you might be tempted to say, come on, you davened after plag. Fine, it was betoyas, but why do you have to repeat davening? Says the Mishnah Berurah. Tzarachu, keven shebetoyas hispal shesaver shekvar chashecha. He davened so early by mistake. He thought he was davening after tzeis. It turned out that he's davening much earlier, just after plag, even before shkia. V'hu adin b'chol nami dina hachi. Says the Mishnah Berurah, this halacha applies on Tuesday the same way it applies on Friday. And here comes the kicker. Kevan shehu noyik tamid lihispal ma'ariv bizmanoi kirabanon. We're assuming over here that we're dealing with a person who always davens Ma'ariv Bizman. He always davens Ma'ariv after Tzeis, or at least after Shkia. He always davens Ma'ariv Bizman. He never davens Ma'ariv like Shitas Reb Yehuda after Plag. So, and over here we did it by mistake. That's what he means over here, the Mishnah Berurah. Kevin Chu Noy Tamil Ispal Ma'ariv Bizman Kirabonon. Like the Shita of the Rabbanon that argue on Reb Yehuda. The Shita of the Rabbanon is you daven Ma'ariv after Tzeis. You don't daven Ma'ariv after Plag. Shitas Reb Yehuda, you daven after Plag. But this fellow never does like Reb Yehuda. He did like Reb Yehuda now betoyas. V'hayoyim betoyas ispalel. He has to daven over again. Okay, the next topic over here is going to be the question, now, what happens with these people as far as Kabbalah Shabbos? Because remember, we said that they thought it was late, so they tzindlicht, they lit Shabbos licht, and they daven Ma'ariv. And it was after Plag. Now, a Kabbalah Shabbos after Plag could be an effective Kabbalah Shabbos. So what's their status as far as Shabbos is concerned? Is it Shabbos and they're Aser B'asiyas Malacha or not? So we don't have time to start that now. We'll continue with that Mirza Hashem next time. Thank you so much for joining me for Limud HaTorah. This list of Limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. The Ran Shem should send Yeshua Sefer Parnasa Shadukim to all those in need, and we should be zeichet to see the BS Koel Tzedek B'mehera v'yameinu Amen. Be well.